Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome to all of you for this webinar on From Research to Writing, Turning Authorities into Persuasive with Arguments. Today, we have with us Professor Dr. Naveen Ahuja and Dr. Rajesh Sharma. Both of them are very well-known name in the Viz community. And I'm so honored that both of them could take out their valuable time to join us today. Naveen sir is an arbitrator and a mediator and a co-president of MAA. And Dr. Rajesh Sharma is associate professor at RMIT University, and he's also one of the committee members of the Moot. And their bios were so long that if I go on reading them, then it will take half an hour each. So both of them are very well known. So without wasting much time, I would like to start off with something very basic. Naveen sir, I think I'll start with you since we just have very limited time left for the claimant's memo submission. And I think you've gone through so many memos at this point of time. What stands out in a memorial for you, and what are the things that makes a memo from an average memo to something that is excellent? What are the points that you consider while marking a memo? And the teams that have been marked the most, what exceptional they have done.
Thank you, Mark, for the kind introduction. And well, actually, I better check if I am audible and visible before I
Yes,
proceed.
they can hear
Brilliant,
you.
brilliant. I mean, the starting point, as you would presume, is really starting from the very first page, the cover page. And often I found when marking memos to see typos on the cover page itself, either the name of the competition or the names of the parties. So that's something to be very much aware of, really. And moving from there to really the table of contents. When I go through that, everything should be consistent in terms of the formatting, because sometimes you will see, and it becomes very visible, really, that different team members have produced different parts of the memo. Like maybe two or three people did the first and second issue, two or three people did the third and fourth issue, and so on. And so it becomes very inconsistent. And then that already demonstrates, like, okay, that it's not going to be the best, really, because of the mixed signals that it's giving out in the very beginning. For example, the font, the size, the style, and you can see even from the A moving to one, moving to Roman numeral one, and those just become very different. And for example, in some headings and subheadings, you have the first letter of each word capitalized for some of them, but not others. Again, all those inconsistencies, they don't leave a great impression. And that's just from the very beginning, the very basics. Then you move on to the list of abbreviations. Actually, what I'm basically doing is taking you step by step how I look at the memo. So when you look at the list of abbreviations, sometimes they're not in alphabetical order, or sometimes they're inconsistent in the styles. And again, that just you don't feel impressed, right? And accordingly, the level drops, and then you already have a much harder fight now because of that impression you've left unnecessarily. And I suppose it's understandable because often teams, what they do is they focus on the arguments, they focus on the research, the substance. And then they say, the editing purposes, we can do that at the very end, in the last minute. And actually, that plays a crucial role, and teams often undermine that, sadly. So you have really good arguments, but then because you've already dropped low in terms of the impression, you've got really hard work to do in terms of making me go back up there and thinking, actually, I misjudged you. Um, Finally, well, I wouldn't go finally, really, but then we move to things like the index of authorities. Again, the whole alphabetical look at the number of cases you have, the awards you have, and the scholarly opinions. And again, it's not really about just quantity, but quality. You want to see a good range. Sometimes teams make the mistake of, well, let's say if they're from one specific jurisdiction and they find a lot of cases from that same jurisdiction, that doesn't leave a great impression. And Other ways are, for example, where they introduce cases which are unrelated to arbitration. For example, purely domestic contract law case or some random insurance case. And because there's a there's a rule they like from that case, they apply that here, thinking that hey, it helps them. But actually it goes against them because then I question the relevance. And if you think about if this actually ought to be applicable and allowed, well, that would mean that basically you can rely on domestic cases from all over the world on any random practice area. And that doesn't help because that just makes the whole process complicated and not necessarily relevant. For me, what makes a memo outstanding is really the A to Z. When you refer to the statement of facts, are you just coming up with neutral set of facts, or are you focused on claimant's memorandum, given that you are drafting claimant's memorandum, but at the same time being accurate, making an impact to show why your client is the good party, the wronged party, and why they should win just from the facts alone. And then the summary of facts, clarifying clearly what your arguments are. And then finally, it's how you refer to the actual authorities and also the aesthetics, of course. Often teams like they feel that, as you speak, you have one idea, then another team member has another idea, and then the third team member has a third idea, and you try to put all of that in the same paragraph and sometimes in the same sentence. And then you read this and you're still reading, and then you're still reading, and then you think, wait, I'm lost now. What was the beginning of the sentence? So you want to be careful of that. Often simplicity is at its best. You just make it simple, easy to read. And for me, I mean, I learned a lot from Rajesh. He was my coach when I was a Mooti. And for me, the test I like to use is often I refer to as, just having a 10-year-old reading your case, understanding your case, without having to ask you any questions, without having to read the moot problem, without having to reread your sentence or your paragraph. If you can achieve that, you're on your way to success, assuming you have authorities to back you up. Because really, you can argue anything you want. If you have one scholarly opinion, because traditionally civil law practitioners uh, prefer that, and if you have a case law, and because common law practitioners used to prefer that, you demonstrate the weight of your arguments, the persuasiveness. Uh, I think, and on the aesthetics point, it's not really just about having up to 3 lines per sentence, but it's also about having headings, subheadings, not having extremely long paragraphs or extremely short paragraphs. Those are a few points to think about. I think I'll stop here for now. Thanks.
Thank you so much, sir. Rajesh, sir, now coming to you. Of course, Naveen, sir, has highlighted what is required and what a good memo looks like. But a lot of time, teams also commit mistakes. So, for you, what are the do nots? What teams should avoid while drafting and while in this last 1 week, while preparing, drafting, and putting everything in the memo?
Well, thank you again, Mahek. And Naveen, you have put it very nicely. I may have coached you before, but you are now the expert in that one. So I'm learning. And as a good student, I'm always learning. And every year when I read the memo, I learn something new in both ways. The same way, what is good and what a team should not do. And as Naveen has told you what to do, is the same thing is that what you should not do, like main thing. And it's very funny, like he talked about the cover page, because we also talk about the cover page many times. I'm marking east and as well as the Vienna one, and I see the memo for Vienna one writing on top is the east, and for east is writing the for the Vis 33rd moot. I mean, so this is just one, like page. Immediately, doesn't matter which team you are, as a marker, as a ranker, like we immediately feel that you are not serious or something has gone wrong. And that shows that moment it brings your credibility down. That's the only thing it happens. So this is the packaging, and this is what we say. What is the difference between ordinary and extraordinary? Is ordinary and extraordinary, the difference is that extra. and that extra word is there. Same like all these things are like, the how you write cover page, table of content and everything is a very much like a packaging. It is like you are buying a Tiffany ring, then you should have a very nice packaging also. If you're buying a diamond ring, it must be packed in a nice package. You can't put a diamond ring in the plastic bag. So it will take away the whole thing. But at the same time, you have a very nice package, but inside the content is totally rubbish. It's not good as you want, then it means the packaging will also not do. So a good memo should have a balance of both. So what is do not part is that we can just tell the student that if you want to write your memo, say for example, now 1 week is left. Ideally, any team should have now the deadline this week, that we should be ready by this week. And I tell you, even if you are ready by this week, you will not be finishing even one day before, because even after closing you have to do so many readings. And a good memo, when you are writing it, at least it should go through 25 to 30 rounds of editing. After writing, I'm talking about it, not just like writing or while writing. So you cannot prepare in 11:59 or like 6:30 Vienna time, your time, like you count, oh, still we have 6 hours to work in the night. Those kind of a rush work, it will never be good. And I used to call it's more like a firefighting. You are firefighting now, your memo will not do it. And if you are a good team and you are really working very methodically, time wise, fix your time, fix your target, fix your research, you do in a planned way of writing, then what will happen is that you will be ready beforehand. So most of the team, they do not make a plan, they do not think backward. So if you are thinking that okay, 15th of December is a deadline, then you should fix a lock on 10th of December, then you start thinking about then our memoranda should be ready beforehand. So that's how you work plan before. And when you are writing it, at the same time you assign the who will write whatever part, but then you should have a general editor who should be the editing the memo to bring the language and everything, which Naveen was saying, that it is totally like you don't combine everything, you combine in a nice way so that it will be consider, or it feels like that you are writing one person has written. So that kind of a thing. So what we can say, that the team should not write separately and at the last moment they start clubbing it. That will not work. Again, what they should work is as a team, not fragmented way. It will never help. If the team is really working as a team, then they will help each other. So even if you are from writing on the substantive part, you should know about the procedural part. If you're writing a procedural part, you should also know about the substantive part, because at that time team should know both sides of the argument, and procedural as well as substantive. If you just say that I'm a substantive part, I'm procedural part, it will also not work. You should have an understanding of that type. So this is another thing, like they should do it not working fragmented way, but do it in a very coherent way. The third thing I will suggest, that when they are doing the research, and this is the one thing we see, is that they just start looking at on the Google or on some case other thing, or go to CISG database and you start looking at it. Over there you will find thousands of cases. Now they will say, what are you doing? Oh, I'm doing the research, I'm just reading and reading and reading. But what you will find, the problem is that you are entering into a forest without knowing which tree you are looking for. So first set your target at what you are looking for. So therefore, formulation of research question is also very important. Not just finding the cases, you will not find anything. So you should start looking at in that way. The research should be very, very like, good in that sense. And that will only happen if you do a structured research. The another thing I will suggest the team member, when they are writing the content, the students have a tendency of writing in a memo like they write the class notes. And the class notes is like, oh, this case says this case says this case says that, or this case or this law says that, this law says that. Basically, students become a teacher and they start giving a lecture on the paper. This, they forget about that this is a claimant memo or respondent memo. This is your pleading, this is your argument. You have to make an argument, you have to make a case, not to teach us what the law is. You should apply the law, and that is the main part. So most of the memoranda has this problem where they start explaining the law, the facts and everything without having any connection, that why I have to read that, what if I know it, and what if I know more than the student. then I will not give a much credit to that. So this is the one thing they should do it. Writing style has to be more like a memoranda writing, more, maybe more like a making a case on behalf of your client. So don't write like a student, or don't write like a lecturer or giving a lecture notes. Write like an argument. That's the this language part is that. Another thing is that they should understand that how many arguments they are making, which arguments has which part. There's a one sequencing part which Naveen was telling. This is the problem. There has to be writing. Either you first explain the law, or you explain the application on the fact, or you have to talk about the policy or what the law should be, kind of a thing, or what, how the case should be decided. We see sometimes they are writing about something else, like start with the law, then the facts, and then policy. Sometimes they will write about the policy, then sometimes facts. There's nothing like you can say in a way they will say I have written everything, so why I have to follow the sequence. But from marking side and from good memoranda side, the moment we read like that, we know that the student or who's or the team which is writing it, they are not writing in a proper thinking. Their thinking is not clear. Their structure is not clear. They are confused. And that's why the argument becomes so messy in that one. Second, they should also, after that, when they are writing it, there's no need to start writing the paragraph. Tendency of the student is that they start writing the memo paragraph. I would say that first write in the bullet point, like a table of content. And the table of content is your story. Table of content, the heading and the subheading and everything, they should speak to yourself. They should speak to your content. They should speak to your argument. So the heading and subheading are not just any word or any line. This is your line of argument. A good reader, just by reading, if I am reading it, if I read the table of content, read the heading and subheading, I can understand your line of argument and I can understand what you are talking about. That kind of impression should come. So we say you talk for the purpose. You write with a purpose, not just writing anything, not 30 pages to fill in, but what paragraph should be there, what you should have it is there. Another thing is that regular argument anybody can make it, but we also like to see the creative use of facts, innovative writing, creative writing, something over there. So the memo is not just for the argument. It shows your depth of research and breadth of your argument, and it is your choice. It is your opportunity to put in everything. Simple sentences and all those things are very good. Most of the people, they write very complex sentences. We say that don't write 8 words, more than 8 words in your sentences, otherwise it will be too complicated. Break it down. Another, so simple writing, easy understanding, and the whole argument should be, they think that, oh, it's a complex area of law, how can I explain you so easily, I have to write 2 pages to explain you. That's wrong. That's wrong. And for us, our only example I give them, that watch Net Geo or Discovery and all, they talk about such a complex matter, but they explain it in such a simple way. So our idea is that your writing should be simple, yet it's the content wise, the load wise, it should be complex. It should be the creating, communicating the complex idea of law, but it can be done in an easy way. So slowly these kind of a things, if they follow it, then their argument and like the content of the memo will be very good in that sense. So these are few things I can say that they should be mindful of that, and there are many other things we can in the process we can talk about it.
Can I just add
Right. Yes.
to what Rajesh said about the completing the memo a few days before the deadline? I often tell the students, depending on the arrangement we have, some students they actually get grades for their work in their participation in for being ready for the Moot problem, right? For the Bismuth. So I tell them actually my grade I'm going to decide 5 days before the Moot problem, before the submission of the memo. So, but on that day, I will look at your memo. For me, that's the last draft, and I will decide what grade you should get. Because it's really like an assignment, or really anything you do. Often you have this beautiful piece of let's say a journal article you've written, and rather than submitting it right away because you're just only anxious to see what the publisher says, you put it aside for a day, maybe 2 days, Then you come back to it and you read it, and then you ask your, often we always do that, right? We ask ourselves, what was I thinking? What was I writing? I mean, what was I doing at the time that I wrote such things? And now you rework it. You have the chance, you have the opportunity. Play around with it, revise it, and then again you have another day or two to put it aside and then go back to it. And that's how you get an A. Even for assignments at university, school, always do it well in advance, put it aside, come back to it, and that's when you actually see the problems, the pros and cons, really. And as Rajesh said about all team members contributing, that's important, not just because you're a substantive speaker, you focus on the substantive issues. And the teams, when I coach them, they hate it. They hate that process because they're saying, I've done all my work on the merits. We're looking at issues one and two, procedural. I'll just join the call, but I won't do anything. I'm just going to sit back. And then I often ask, so has the team looked at the draft? Yes, yes, we have all looked at it. And then I look at some obvious flaw that I don't understand at all. And then I ask the merit speaker, the merits team member, can you please explain to me what this paragraph says? And then they're stuck. Uh, and then I say, now we have to end the meeting because clearly the team hasn't gone through it. And I will ask you about each word, each sentence, each paragraph in at any random time. And the person has to answer, any of the team members. So I suggest you all go back, go through it, and when you're all happy with it, then we have our meeting. Because I'm not supposed to be doing your work. I'm not supposed to tell you which word to use, how to write a sentence, and so on. And on the application, or rather, when Rajesh said about treating it like an assignment, um, often teams will try to adopt the IRAC approach, the issue, rule, application, conclusion. And so we try to suggest something like the CREAC. So you have like a conclusion already. Well, the contract concluded on this day. That's the conclusion. Then you actually have the rules, explanation, analysis, then the conclusion again. But of course, you will not have this identical wording of the two conclusions. You will use different wording to demonstrate why you actually win on those points. Um, and then on the creative writing, actually, sadly, teams sometimes quickly dismiss certain things because it says it's not possible, put it aside. I said, but just because they said that it's not possible, why? Why can't we fight it? Like go back and think about it. Like pretend you're a business person, pretend you are claimant. Even if you can't think from the legal perspective, think about commercial perspective. How will you try to win? If you must win, what would you try to suggest? And then you try to think about the relevant law or rule to help you back it up. And or sometimes what team members are doing is they get distracted because they're saying, if I argue something, respondent can respond like that. So maybe I shouldn't use that argument. But it's a moot problem. And actually, that's life. When you go to court, you're not going to have this super powerful argument that no one can respond to, right? There's always an argument. Because if there's a guaranteed winner, you will not go to court, you will not go to arbitration. The other side will simply pay you your money because they know they're going to lose. So just think about that. And actually, Rajesh, I like your analogy about the Tiffany packaging. I'm going to use that if that's all right.
Sure, sure. I also learned about the CRES, like, that is, but it's very, very interesting, like, to hear all these things. I mean, these are the obvious thing which we have been seeing all the time, but the team never think that this is so obvious. And particularly, like, they also, oh, this argument is so strong for respondent. As a claimant, we cannot argue that. And my simple example was, I said, okay, I give you $1 million, hire you as a lawyer to argue on behalf of me, to counter that argument. Are you going to tell me that you will not take my $1 million and not come up with any argument? Of course you will come up with the argument. And that's, like, another way to motivate them and put them in that one.
Um, yeah, absolutely. And I think, Naveen sir, what you highlighted about teamwork, we've often seen that they come with a prejudice that, or if it's a oralist, then they'll not work a lot on the research. If it's a researcher, they'll stick to the issues that they're working on. And a lot of times during oral arguments, also, we've witnessed that one team has very strong speaker, but they do not go through because the teamwork is missing, because they're not well coordinated. Coming back to one controversial kind of question, we see students using AI a lot these days. Uh, there's a lot of reliance which is being placed on artificial intelligence, chat GPT, for research as well as for drafting. How much is it advisable to use AI, and how they can actually make optimum use of it while staying in the ethical background, while not, actually plagiarizing anything or going beyond that?
Shall
Um,
I
yeah.
shall I go?
Mm,
Well,
yeah.
I mean, I'm not familiar with the Viz rules, Viz Vienna and Viz East on the use of AI. I believe the team members are meant to sign a declaration as to the fact that they haven't used Chat GPT or any AI software, if I'm not mistaken. I might be wrong there, but that's something the teams would have a better idea of. But really, I don't think AI actually helps. I think it does the opposite because we're humans. We're trying to put ourselves in the shoes of the party, separately, the lawyer. We're able to think in different ways. And I've even been told actually by, well, I can't mention, I don't know if I should mention it, but basically I've been told that it doesn't help. It's been almost confirmed that it doesn't help you. Now, if English is a concern, that's different if you want to use it for editing. But I think what's important is to go through the rules to ensure whether or not you are allowed to use ChatGPT. And really, what can AI actually help you do? You're the one being creative by looking at the mood problem, trying different angles in terms of facts, laws, rules. Uh, if you're concerned about your English level, you make your sentences short, simple, and actually that'll score you more points than trying to use special words, long words, and then making the person who's marking your memo think, actually, does this make sense? Is the grammar right? There are too many long words here. What is the person actually trying to say? Often they say, just be simple and get to the point. And so I don't think AI helps at all, to be honest. But that's just my view.
Mm. Well, my view is that I have not used so far any AI or chat GPT. Personally, I have not seen no program, I have not downloaded anything. So the reason I didn't do it, because I feel that if I do it, once I do it, I become like, slave of it or something. And that will really kill my creativity. And that I don't want. And this is the one. But I just give an example. I drafted a moot kind of a scenario for my students to write, and again I asked them to write as a claimant, I write as a, or like an arbitrator. I say you choose which side you want to do. Since I drafted the mood problem, or like in the assignment, like a mood problem, so I know what I have put in there. I know how I have drafted, what are the things I am looking for. So all these things I put it there. And for a trial, I said that okay, fine. Like, in our university, we have a, like, a chat GPT developed by university that they can use. I said, go ahead, use it. And the result when they come out, it was completely wrong, totally useless, doesn't have any sense what we are looking at. And later on, I told them, okay, now you have tried this. Can you use your own brain and write it? And when they did it on their own, based on the knowledge they acquire in the class, their writing was much better. Their argument was much better than the AI itself or chat GPT. So that's our view, but maybe some students are smarter than us, and I don't know how they will do it, or maybe in the future. But at this moment, when you are looking for the real creative argument, something, I don't think that Chat GPT will really give you that. And in the mood is definitely there. And even if they have those Chat GPT, they might be somehow they can write the memo, put in there. But while reading it, I think you will understand, because sometimes in the chat GPT or with that kind of an assistance, some words are written. It's a very archaic word. We never use it in a common our understanding. And suddenly I said, where did we read this word? Maybe 20 years ago. It means this person has not really done the real work and use the chat GPT. So a smart reader will definitely pick it up. So I don't think I don't know it's a controversial or not, but whatever it is at this moment, I also like Naveen. I did not find it very useful at this moment. I can tell you that.
And it's not even creativity. Even if you want basic arguments, actually, the fact is that these AI softwares make mistakes. They provide sources that actually don't exist or that they're inaccurate. For example, if you ask, say, ChatGPT, I'm looking for a specific case between 2010 and 2015 on a certain point, and after getting the answers, getting those cases, if you actually go through them, many of them will not even be during those years. Many of them will actually not even be on that point. And then when you challenge the software and say, "Hey, this is wrong," the answer is, "I'm sorry." So it doesn't help you in any way, really.
Absolutely. And of course, um, one point is it does block your creativity. And there have been many instances wherein it has given wrong authorities, wherein it has given, wrong research. So AI specifically, I also feel that it cannot be used for research purposes, for drafting purposes. And of course, we have to be in conformity with the with rules. Um, Now coming back to one particular aspect, a lot of times when I've interacted with teams recently, there are many teams, of course, they've researched everything. They're now putting everything together in the memo. They're in the process of drafting. Now, now when we are looking at how they're presenting their arguments in the memorial, when I listen to oral arguments of a team in a way specifically, few of them, how they start, how they present their arguments, they're very clear, they know, okay, this, their openings are very strong. And few of them, they are very thorough with their research, they know the facts a lot well, but somehow they're unable to present it in a proper manner, and they lose on to their marks because of that. They do not know when to use which authority, how to present it, what flow should be used. So while now, when we are just 1 week away from submission deadline, and they're consolidating their research and what all they've done in past few months, how should they present, number one, when they're writing their arguments for an issue? What makes it different, and what should the flow of the arguments be, and how many authorities, of course, they should be using? A lot of teams feel that putting in so many authorities would give them brownie points. So what works, and how does it work? Rajesh sir, maybe you can take this up.
No, let Naveen do that. I mean, when I will say it's different, but when Naveen says that, I really enjoy listening to him.
Oh, that's very kind, Rajesh. I'm basically going to say exactly what I've learned. Um, for me, regarding the number of authorities, it's not really about quantity, it's really about quality. At the same time, you can't have just a couple of pages of sources, right? So it's got to be striking a balance, but you don't focus on the quantity as in the number primarily. What's important is that they are relevant, that they actually help your arguments. And so the starting point is to come up with your strongest argument. And after having your strongest argument, you can't, you wouldn't really want to bank all of it on it. Because, I get I get teams where they say, let's just focus on this, then we'll move on to the next issue and then the next issue. I said, but okay, what if the tribunal's not with you on this point? But we made such good points, we made such good arguments. Yeah, I said, but so the whole point is to always have an alternative argument. Always. That way, you're saying, we've given you the strongest point. Now, if you don't like it or you don't agree with it for whatever reason, we have a plan B. And better yet, a plan C. So either way, we should win. And for me, that's important. And when relying on sources, they actually have to be relevant to what it is you argue. If you're focused on, let's say, for example, commencement date, and you have in a case law or scholarly opinion that, okay, may have a few interesting words or sentences, but it has nothing to do with this, you ask yourself if somebody from that jurisdiction knows that authority. Like, for example, if they refer to a case that says the opposite of what you're saying, but there's a nice phrase in there and you quote that phrase, what will that petitioner think? Do you need to explain that although in that case it went against us as to what we want to argue, their analysis helps us as they refer to this test. And in our case, this test helps us. something like that.
Right.
Hmm.
Also now, if any of the participants have any questions, they can put in the chat box. I'll take them one by one. Naveen sir, you also highlighted about one aspect, uh, and I've witnessed it that there are different team members who prepare each issue and who draft each issue, and that inconsistency is very evident, very apparent on if you see the memo. How do you ensure that it stays uniform? Should one person be doing the entire editing? Should one person be doing the entire drafting and others just putting in their pointers, putting in the authorities and research? How this issue can be resolved?
I mean, subject to Rajesh's views, I think it really depends on the team dynamic, the members' preferences, because there are some people who really love the editing process. They want to be take full charge from A to Z, from paragraphing, typing, and all of that. But that person alone can't do all the work. So really, all the other team members ought to be in the same room or in the same chat contributing. So it has to be a team effort. That's one of the easiest ways, I think. Alternatively, they all have a say and try to think of which word to use, which choice of word to use, which choice of terms, how to phrase the sentence. But it's time consuming, and one of the one of the common mistakes really is the expectation. And actually, that's why I tell a lot of teams that if you want an honorable mention, any kind, claimant memo is the best chance because teams think it's not going to be that much work. It's not going to be that difficult. We can do it later. We can save the editing work for later. We can do the writing part later, or we can do the teamwork together at the end. And then they realize, oh, there is no time left, and then they work extra hard for respondents memo, which means you have your best chance of getting any award would be the first round, the first step, claimants memo. Because when you say, okay, we didn't do that well, we work harder for respondents memo, all the other teams are in the same boat. I can't
Absolutely.
Eh,
remember. I can't remember if I answered your question. Sorry.
You did. Rajesh,
I
you were saying something.
I was just going back to the earlier part, the writing of memo style and what they are doing. I already explained that when they are writing it, the first thing is that write it as an argument basis, not as a lecture basis. Not that this case said this case said this, but they should use it how. But then when you are writing it in the memo, is always the first paragraph is the opening paragraph where you should say this is the issue, and that should say that under that issue, how many arguments you have. So that's the clear part. Then you take one argument one by one and then you start unpacking. Then again, why you are arguing this? And what are your basis on that one? So the reason will always, your argument will come on the basis of facts, on the basis of law, and on the basis of policy and all. So that's how they need to unpack and structure like that. But the problem is they have written the once you know the structure, you start writing like that. But I suggest that for any team, I mean, of course, they are a student, they can't be understanding and writing everything because not every team has a coach like Naveen, so they have to learn from others. So what the best way to start a team who wants to write, first thing is that just think about that whether if you want to write that tribunal has jurisdiction or tribunal has no jurisdiction. If you want to write that, then you think about that on what basis you are saying it. Try to think about that. And even if you are right, then people will say, what is your authority for that? What do you have in support for that? And then you start looking for it. Then you will look it from the moot problem, the facts. Then you look at what law says on that. And then you look at what the policy says on that or what should be. It should be like that. So these are the things you think. Once you have a clarity in your mind, then a statement or your sentence will start flowing. If your mind is clouded, then you cannot write a clear sentence. If your mind is clear, then you will write sentences. And it should be a very simple sentence. I don't want them to start with like a legalistic language. Very simple sentences, you write your paragraph. Then you go back and read your every line and think about that. If I'm saying it, what is my basis for that? So at least give me one authority, either from the facts, from the cases, from the award, anywhere, or in the book. You say according to this, like, you say that first. Okay. So that's how you can now support every sentence which you are writing. Then you go back again and think about that. If I'm relying on this case, I'm relying on this sentence. What is that particular line, the sentence which the award says, the book says, or the judge has said, which is supporting your argument? And if you find that line, we suggest that you put it in italic, inverted comma, whatever, bring that sentence in your simple sentence and combine it together, make a simple one sentence. So in that way, you can make your very nice research well, and you can put an suggestion. Then you go back again. If you have a research, we say that generally you should support your argument with the three authorities. Three authority different, like, if you are looking at the cases or if you are looking at an award. If you are looking at the cases, it should be supported by a common law case, a civil law case, and one a scholar if you can find it. So in that way, why civil and common law? Because you can cover all. But even if you have a court cases, it should be supported by one arbitration award. That is your breadth of research or depth of research. At least by using one authority, which is minimum is the facts, you have something support, and then you keep on adding extra over there over the period which you do it. You can't do it in one day, but if your research is good, you can do that. And that's how you start using it. These are your authorities which should go back in your list of authorities. So if you are using the three authorities to support your one sentence, automatically this will go in your list of authorities. And then your list of authority will be authentic and reliable, and you really support that argument on that one. Not just copying and pasting from one another. Generally, when we were suggesting to write, we generally suggested the team, your list of authority for everything, whether it's a court cases or whether books or whether it's an arbitration award, it should be around 4 to 6 pages. But again, if you say 4 to 6 pages, then you will say what should be the line spacing and other reasonable. It's not that you cram everything or you expand everything in that one. A reasonable spacing, reasonable thing, because you have to write authority, number, authority, and where in the moot you have used it. And I can tell you in 1 year example is that there was a fine difference between the winner and the runner up. In that one, it was decided on the basis of authority, that authority which were quoted, it was really used it or not in the text. Because many teams, they follow their, copy and paste from the last year memo, because all the arbitration related book will be the same, CISD related book will be the same. That doesn't change. Only few article comes and go, like most of the things are same. So they do this kind of a mechanical or copy paste. I will not say it's a very bad idea, but yes, they have, over the period, they have created their own library. You can use it, but a smart team has to think about that, how you are going to use it. And my one suggestion is that to team, many teams, they think that memo writing is not that important. And I say it's very wrong. A good team, a winning team, a champion team should have a very good memo, because your memo shows that your research is good and your argument is good, which you can use it at the oral round. You can use that. And so far as consistency, inconsistency, editing is a good idea, and teams should do it together. Uh, and this is the whole idea, that to read together, flash it on the screen, read it together, or on a computer, share the file, you can read it together. So you go line by line and read it and try to understand, bring all the team members to understand that, did you understand what we are saying? Is it correct? Is it reasonable? Can you win me? Can you convince me? And that's how the process should go ahead, and then consistency will come. And you will be very surprised if everybody will start thinking, they find the inconsistency in their argument. They say, oh, why did you say over there and now you are saying something else? You said something in the procedural part, now you are saying totally different in the substantive part. And that's how you start picking up the problems in that one, and you make it very nice. So that's my view in the memo part.
Right. Thank you so much, sir, for taking this up. There's one question. We've 10 minutes approx now before we conclude. There's one question by Fairoz. I think you've already touched upon it, but maybe one final say on it. Is it better to have a personal imprint on the memo or to keep it strictly argumentative?
Personally,
Personal imprint, I think, Fairuz, if you can elaborate a question a little, but I think what he's trying to say is, of course, everyone has a different style of how they draft and how they approach their arguments. So he's saying, is it okay to add that personal touch or add your...
The only thing I have seen when we were doing it before, we had a statement of facts, and then dramatis persona was added. And now I see in every section they write a proverb, a kind of a saying, and they start on that one. And I think people have just started seeing that, oh, something is different and something unique, and they started saying it. So, say for example, they tell that the respondent was a very bad and everything, and they say karma will bite you back, something like that. So, okay, in a way it's there, but if you read the line, it feels that, oh yeah, it's a very nice one, but what is that? And then they will explain. They will quote something from Othello, or some from Shakespeare, or some kind of, like, novel, and they put that heading, and means the way that you write the book chapter and you put something there and then you explain the scene. So somebody is writing even in that part. So I think that this is also a new way of writing, and I think it's a breaking the tradition. So the readers, like, when we read, we remember that as, oh, that's very unique. So sometimes people like that idea. So the personal touch, I think, is coming, is more like dramatic writing, or it's like a book chapter writing, or it's like, the converting book into movie, or movie writing kind of a thing. So that style we have seen is coming in the memoranda writing. And they have also gone very high up, and they have won the award. So, but this one I see is because of the change, because of the breaking the tradition and writing something new. I don't know how long it will look. So Naveen can tell you more about that, like, what is his feeling about those quotations on top of the, like, every section.
Well, I have to admit that in my book on arbitration, I did something like that for each chapter. I had a one-liner, but really to match the theme of each chapter. I like doing that sometimes.
Mm,
I think there are pros and cons because by adding such kind of like one-liner proverb or analogy or anything relevant, it shows that you're really thinking and you want to make a positive impression. But then you also have the traditional practitioners who will mark your paper and say, "What is this? We don't do such things." So there is a bit of a risk, but usually I would think that it's positive. Of course, what that does mean is that you have completed your memo well in advance to spend time on aesthetics. So you're giving the impression that I've done an excellent job and I have a little bit of time. So now I've decided to use that time in working on these one-liners or two-liners. So my expectations are very high then. And if I read from the table of contents or from the actual draft that it's not that great, it puts a really negative impression. So that's something you want to think about too. And again, it doesn't necessarily appeal to everyone. And the
mm.
fact is that you will have practitioners from different parts of the world marking your memo. How complex will that one liner or two liner be? Also, you want to take that into account.
Yeah. Right. One final, maybe second last question that I'll take to Naveen sir. Soumya has a question. How can we reduce verbosity in the arguments without excluding the relevant facts? Since the problem this year is very factual and a big timeline is being used to support the same. Adhering to the page limit while citing legal and factual arguments is proving to be difficult for the team.
I mean, it really depends on how you look at the problem, right? Because while it's very heavy on the facts, a lot of it is repetitive. And often what you will notice is if you work as a team and you go through each sentence, each paragraph, you will actually ask yourself, or those who are not involved, let's say in a specific issue, they may ask you, hey, why are we writing this? Because isn't the previous paragraph saying the same thing? Or sometimes what happens is you find different authorities, they're saying similar things, not identical things. And the question is, do you need to rely on one specific quote? And then you have two separate lines for the same kind of idea? Or do you have your own wording and put those authorities together to support that point? So there are many ways of applying the relevant authorities and reducing the content because it's actually quite a short memo, short mood problem compared to the past, in my view.
I was going to say the same thing, that which year we don't have lots of facts, which year we don't have lots of law to apply. Every year is the same. So you can't say that, oh, this year the mood problem is fact heavy. Every year is like that. So it's a writing style which will help you, not the mood or size of the mood problem. And I'm sure that you go back and read your sentence one after another, one day after another. Don't read it in the same day. You write it and go back next day, or after a few hours go back and read it again, and then you will realize. And the big problem in the team is that when they write it, they think that my argument is the best argument and it should be there. And as an editor, when you say that cut it out, then they will say, no, 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 you can't take it out, it's very important. But important thing can also be said in a very different way, in a short way. You can do that. And remember, you have to present all these arguments in 15 minutes. So what you will do at that time?
And one thing to think about is actually sometimes you find some really nice quotes, you find some really nice arguments, but then what actually ends up is that you are slowly digressing from the actual issue. So I actually have to remind the teams, I'll say, what is this? Is it a very nice case? It helps claimant. Oh, wow. Okay. Now, can we go back to the issue? What is the issue? Oh, which version of the rules applies? Now tell me, how does this help this issue? It doesn't. So do we need it? No. Delete.
Yes, thank you so much for taking this up. And just to add it on, a lot of times what happens is when we're researching or when we're in the process of writing, we feel everything is important. We feel this should be included, this should be included. And I think it's already been pointed out, it's a good idea to sit through it and read it again after a day or two. And then you realize, oh, what frame of mind I was in when I was reading this. Maybe this can be omitted. Maybe this is not that relevant. So I think that's why this week is very crucial for all the teams. One final question that I'm going to take up is, and I think both of you can give in your inputs on this. What are the important final checks that the team should conduct before submission, since there's only 1 week remaining?
Well,
How?
I
Yeah.
can. Oh, Naveen, you go ahead first.
I would just say give it a few hours or give it half a day if possible. Just put it aside and then come back to it and then just read it out loud. Just think about it practically. You should have, this is on the assumption that you have double checked, triple checked, as Rajesh said, all the quotes, the facts from the mood problem, and really maybe even spend a little bit of time reading the mood problem one more time because you know, you will always find something that you didn't have come across before. And you say, hey, why didn't we look at this before? I just still thought about it. And that happens even until the last day of the mood problem. On the very last day, you may even come across something new. So it's important to reread the mood problem. But at the same time, if you can get the whole group together, read it out to somebody who's not involved, just to help to see if they actually understand what you're saying without knowing the mood problem, without having read the mood problem, maybe without even being involved in law completely. Do they understand what you want to say? Because sometimes teams, for example, they'll go straight into well, under Article 8.1, this was the intention, blah blah blah. What is Article 8.1? What does Article 8.1 say? You have, and why are we looking at the CISG? Like all these things, you have to be very clear step by step so that you've given a background, a story, and you're taking us with you very slowly and easily.
My suggestion is that, and this is based on Professor Martin Hunter long time back when students were writing, and I think there was some Indian blog, like they asked this question, they published an interview, and in that one he shared his wisdom that what you need to do as a final check for the mood memorandum. And he said that for editing, even the final check, you have to read your memo 9 to 10 times. So he said 7 to 9 times, and I have added one more on that one. So it's a 10 times you have to read that. And every time when you read, you should have a different purpose. For example, first time when you are reading it, according to the memoranda writing, you follow the rules, time, line, spacing, heading, subheading, all those things which you are checking it. So you do that. Second time when you are reading it, you should read for, if you are reading for the content, then you read only focus on the content, whether your content is right or not. So you read it for that one. Third time when you are reading, you should read it for the authorities, whether your authorities are correct or not. Check on that one. The fourth, fifth time when you are reading it, then you should read it whether the facts are correct or not. Go back and check everything once again on that one. Next time when you are reading it, you should also read it for the coherent part, that each paragraph is flowing in a proper way or not. Whether you have opening, whether you have a conclusion, whether you have a conclusion and again conclusion or not. So the coherence, paragraphs should be connected in that one. Another time you should do that, all the paragraph number and everything which you want to do it, you should do that. So that's the how you should read the paragraph by paragraph. Last, I added another way, which I did it in, we print out the moot problem, like the memoranda from the first page to the last page, cover to cover. We put the team in a circle, and I used to just randomly divide the pages and give it to everyone, like, in circle in a clockwise. So you are reading page number 1 to 5. The other person is reading 5 to 7. Another one is reading 9 to 15, but the paragraph also be not be the same. I don't give it a section by section. I just tear the page and give it to them to read, randomly read. So somebody is reading at the last paragraph, last few pages, somebody is reading in the middle, somebody is reading substantive, and everybody is reading just to understand and correct and sentences. In this kind of a reading is a random reading kind of a thing. You are doing it and you read your pages and pass into the next person. Let him read again. Whatever the correction you have, you make your correction, question everything, and no discussion, just pass into the other side. And then everybody will read the pages, read my correction, they will also read the page again, and they will come up with their own correction, or they can come even the question on my correction. And everything, when we collect it at the end, then we put it together and we discuss page by page, that what is the comment. And then if we have to correct it, because many typos, you will pick it up, and then you can put it your memo and you start correcting it. When the discussion comes on the very important thing, then everybody will talk about it and say that what is the correction. So this random reading part was also very important, because if I'm reading from paragraph, like, 7 to, like, next argument, it should be read in such a flow that even if I'm reading from the middle, I should understand what you are talking about. And when I go to the next section, I should understand what is coming up. Even if I left in the middle, the other person should know where we are starting. So that kind of a coherence is should be there. Like you are preparing a necklace of pearl. So every pearl has to be put together very nicely. You know, it's like that.
The example, sir, you give necklace of pearl and Tiffany. I really like the examples that you use while explaining. Yeah, I think we've covered almost all the questions that came. There was one question by Adya while you mentioned that creativity is a key aspect while we delve into the facts. How should it be incorporated in the best form? I think you've already touched upon how do you incorporate creativity while you're doing your memo. With this, I think we can conclude today's session. And I would like to thank both of you for taking out your time and giving them this guidance and giving them the final things they should consider while there's just 1 week left. Thank you so much. And thank you so much to all the participants who've joined us.
Best of luck, guys. Still, you have 1 week. You can do wonders in that one if you really put together.
I
Also,
echo that. Thank you.
before we close, I think just a quick announcement. So, if any teams attending this webinar would like to test their arguments or get feedback before heading into Vienna or Hong Kong, you're welcome to join the APAC WISPRE Moot 2026. So, the general rounds of the WISMoot, the pre-moot, happen online over 2 weekends. That is 31st January and 1st February, and 7th and 8th February of 2026, followed by elimination rounds, which will take place in person in Kota Kinabalu, Malaysia, from 10th to 13th March 2026. So, if any teams are interested, they're welcome to, register.
Thank
And
you.
And I
Mehak,
will share the details on the chat and also via email. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that.
Mehak,
Yes, sir.
Mehak and Revant, you should also alert the team that in the pre-moot website, we have resources, and in the
Yes.
resources we also have a YouTube video of which we did it in the year one, like how to read the moot problem, how to do research, how to write memo. All those things are there, so you go back and have a look of that. And those YouTube are also given by coaches and the champions who have shared their experience. So you can also learn from there. So you have a ready-made material, have a look of that, and then you combine with what we discussed today, and you'll be fine.
Right.
Can I just add that
Yes, sir.
basically there are many tips out there. The whole point is that there's no shortcut. There's no easy way. It requires hard work. You want success, you've got to work hard for it. It's as simple as that. Thanks.
Yep.
That's really important, I think. What teams actually were looking forward to today was some quick tips or some last minute tips. So that's not a possibility. Thank you so much for highlighting that. And with that, we'll close off today's session. Thank you everyone for joining in. I'm looking forward to see you in Hong Kong or Vienna or the pre-moot. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.